How software systems get big. Kevlin Henney. Hello, I'm Chris Athanas. I'm a KMP developer. I got a scratchy head. Tech Support said they're coming out Tuesday. They promised me. They really just they said they're going to do it. They're going to close that up finally. I'm going to be responding to Kevin Henney. Kevlin. He's one of my favorite software architecture guys. Let's see what he has to say. I usually agree with him. But not always, because you know how I am. I'm cantankerous. Let's keep going.
Very simple question. How do you make a system big? How do you make a big system? What determines the size of a system? And lots of people would...
I love it. I love DevTools Make Simple. He's always got some thing in here. Some codes he's playing around with. This looks like some Java here, right? And some class for some device, some equipment. Okay. All right.
Would love to say, oh, the size of the system is determined by the amount of functions.
Some CRM for doing device management. I don't know.
Functionality that we need to have in it. That's beautiful. Pinch them, wake them up, because that's not reality. They're in a dream world. It's determined by the number of people we decided were going to be involved. Okay? It turns out that you can make a system. In fact, an example of a company
the Conway's Law. Yeah, you can't get away from it, man. Whatever business you are having that you're supporting, the application that you develop is going to be around that business. I don't think it's the people really well. It's just the functionality of the business. The business separated, how you logically separate out the units. We've got some ways we've done it, like finance and HR and development and research, all that stuff. We've had ways of just splitting these things up that are going to reflect the software that you create. Now, where this idea of Conway's Law breaks down is outside of enterprise, when you're doing like desktop applications, when then you're using a metaphor, and everyone has to it has to be a good metaphor. It usually comes out of one person, and they usually design the system top to bottom, and at least what the separations of layers are, and everyone agrees to that, and then we can create APIs between all those things, and ways of setting that stuff up. And this is just Alan Kay's way of decomposing stuff. This is what we're talking about. It wasn't the classes or hierarchies. It was more like the messages between APIs was the real key things. Like individual, each cellular structure is basically a microservice, whatever you want to call it, where it has its own data and everything's all self-contained. You're talking to it over APIs. So like then the question is like, what do you put inside here, inside the cell versus outside the cell? Like chatty, right? It's like there's a lot of communication going back and forth. Well, maybe that thing should be inside here so we can keep it inside the process as opposed to between processes. So it's all that stuff.
I did some consulting for a few years ago. They were creating this kind of state machine, it's a telephony system. They're creating the state machine, and it was beginning to look really, really complex. They were taking a very C-based approach. In fact, it was a really ugly C-based approach. You could have done it more elegantly if you'd programmed C properly. But they were using C++.
What does that mean, Kevlin? Okay, let's keep going.
And I said, look, here's a bunch of techniques that will simplify this. And I drew them up, and I said, look, see how simple this is? And I did a simple demo of code. I said, this will scale really nicely.
Yeah, so that's like the base of the metaphor for the application, but not for the business that supports that application. So they were probably thinking, well, how's it going to support our business and stuff on this thing? It's like, Kevlin's like, I don't know about that stuff. All I just know is about the particular application you have in mind. It's sort of like how the desktop metaphor, right? When you're doing applications for like Photoshop or whatever, or After Effects, you have a metaphor of like these layers, and layers are moving and all that stuff. And then you have these vectors of the lines and all the time track and all that stuff. Like that world, it doesn't really reflect how Adobe business works, but it reflects the metaphor that's needed for that. Now, the team that created that stuff, they have their own stuff, the other software that supports that, the enterprise stuff, that has to match the Conway's Law. So there's a little nuance here. Let's keep going.
I was, the next day, I went in, and they'd had the little Scrum meeting, and I said, so how's that going? And I talked to the one guy that I thought was going to be responsible for the state machine. He says, yeah, we've got no problem with that. We think your idea is great, and the 8 of us are now going to develop it. So it's like, no, this is a 1 or 2 person job. It's a 1-person job, or rather it's a 1 keyboard job. And
not that company. So you took Conway's Law, which is about the organization. You didn't take that into consideration, did you? No, you just did. I need layers. I need motion, graphic, scrubber, and timeline. You just thought about that part. You didn't think about who's going to be doing what and how, and the APIs that define the edges of these things. It was just a holistic thing not these API definitions, which is where the where the real fun starts.
At this point, mob programming had not been invented. Pair
I mean, people were doing it, and I guarantee they're doing something like pair every once in a while. They weren't just going off in their little silos. They were still talking to each other, and it wasn't high bandwidth, like sitting next to each other for hours at a time, for maybe days at a time. It wasn't like that. It was a few minutes at a time. And the mob thing was definitely not a thing, but kind of was when you did the demos and everybody would be piping up about the thing. It was very informal. The mob and pair program, the issues I have is super formalized. I don't think it needs to be so formalized. It needs to be, this is how you do it. It's more like how to think about how to solve your problem, as opposed to, this is how you solve your problems. See, a lot of these architect types and these people sell conferences and trainings and books, they always want to sell you their solution. They don't really want to. So Kevlin helps with this. He says how to think about your solution, how to think about make your solution. How to think about how to get to your solution. Not here's a solution. It's like, we're knowledge workers. We can need a little bit more than that. I think and maybe that's what they do behind the scenes in these conferences. I doubt it though, because usually they put everything out that they show behind the scenes in different forms. If you have enough time, you can get their full information if you just watch enough of their stuff. Because I don't think that clever just to delete the stuff that they don't. I don't think they put out too much that you can see where their heads are at. Let's keep going.
programming certainly had, and these teams did pair, and I just thought, you need one pair to sit there and code this up. You'll be done by the end of the week.
Right, that's Kevlin. You're not. But what about the 6 other people? How are we going to justify the head count for VP? So when we have to scale this thing up, I don't have to get rid of these people now and hire them later, Kevlin. You're not helping, sir. You're not respecting the business environment. You have to respect it. The corporations run the life. If you're doing contracts with corporations like Amazon Web Services, Microsoft, blah blah blah, Dev Week 2015. If you're doing big contracts, yeah, you're gonna have teams that need to split the work because of we've mentioned this before. How these Harvard MBA ties, they see it as every business is the same, and you just split up all the work up, and everybody can just do a little piece of it. There's bottlenecks, you scale up the things. That's not knowledge work. So knowledge work is this other thing. And Kevlin's like still bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, thinking that he can get around Conway's law, which is the Conway's law is about the organization, but there's also this thing about everyone has to have a shared metaphor about how an application works, and that's a whole other thing.
Oh no, when you've got 8 people, you can take months to do this.
Right.
Because this team, there are other teams, this team was the state machine team.
Right, and so this is also the opportunity. We laugh. See how many people laughed? Let's rewind that. Listen to the laughter, because this is the opportunity, because this is the standard. All this baloney junk is the standard way. And if we can skip around it, which I go into detail about how to do that with adventure-driven development, we can skip around it. You can get a massive competitive advantage because a lot of people are just into playing these games, making software for the people want to work with, what people want to use, which is better than what they have now in all the different ways.
This.
Listen to that.
Because this team, there are other teams, this team was the state machine team. That's what we do.
Right, exactly. So that's the derivative, the mirage of the mirage of division of labor due to Conway's law is the standard way, because it's all people all think it's a manufacturing process. And what Kevlin says, he knows innately this is knowledge work. You can build out that structure with 2 guys, and then we can fill in all the other stuff with all the rest. But that initial structure can be done by just a couple people. So he knows that, but he doesn't understand that Conway's law it does overwhelm all this other decisions, and it has to be taken into effect if you're going to get these corporations who still don't understand the difference between knowledge work and a manufacturing process. Let's keep going.
So therefore, that's what we're going to do. That's how you inflate something. A friend of mine took a job that I turned down because I thought these guys are insane. He took a job he took it with full knowledge of what I told him, but for him it was convenient. He could walk to work. Whereas that wasn't a consideration from my perspective. And I remember we had a chat about this after a while, because I said, I just don't see how they could do something, why they need that many people.
Because they're a major corporation, and they're hooked into VC, and they're hooked into Wall Street, and they're hooked into the finance markets, and they're hooked into all that stuff, and they need to have employees to show headcount, to be in the positions they are, to get the money, to get the headcount. Come on, man. this is the opportunity too, because everyone's totally blind. It's like, oh yeah, that's always the way it works. There's no other way. It's like, no, there's a different way.
A couple of years on, he
Adventure-driven development. That's what I'm talking about.
said, yeah, it's kind of interesting. We discovered another part of the organisation in another part of the UK had developed a system that was functionally equivalent to ours. We took 100 people and about 3 years. These guys took 10 people and about 12 months. We make a system as large, not as it needs to be, but as large as we wanted to make it, because
Right, right. Because you're working with a corporation, major, big, huge companies. Yeah, what do you think they're gonna do? Come on, man. They got millions of dollars. They got to do something with the money to justify their budgets and get their friends cushy jobs, which are cool people they like to work with. What, man? This is how it works.
if the way we staff it, the way we create the communication parts.
Yeah, I think he's talking. We're talking a little bit past each other a little bit, but like, yeah. So I think Kevlin's like into the adventure driven, even though he's never heard of it, never doesn't know what I'm talking about. But if I explain it to him, he's like, oh yeah, that's the shit. He thinks that every these corporations are all like that. It's like, no, man, no. No, they're filled with the maintainers. They're filled with these guys. They're filled with these guys. These guys they're filled with the preserver types. That's most of the people there. They want a nice job, man. They want to go on vacation a couple times a year. They want to play with the tech. They want to hang out with their boys. They want to, get stock options and stuff like that. They want their college degree to make sense. Yeah, man. And there's other people like that care about other stuff and want to do more adventure driven. That's a totally different thing. You may have to give up some stuff, but you may gain some stuff. I don't know. All right, give me a like, subscribe, and I'll keep ranting.